Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Q&A for Transform Loss into Life Reimagined, a somatic approach to transmute grief into self-love, gratitude, and newfound purpose. I'm Ann Patricio with the Shift Network, and it is my pleasure to host this Q&A with Wendy Stern as we address questions about her 7-week course, which begins on Thursday, September the 3rd at 10 a.m. Pacific. Now, if you're unable to join us live, but you still want to be with us, don't worry, you can still participate in our course. I'll tell you more about that as well as many other things later. But first, I'd like to welcome my guest. Wendy Black Stern is a yoga therapy practitioner, yoga instructor, and yoga teacher trainer, and also a group facilitator. She is the founder and president of the Grief Support Network, whose mission, programs, and network of resources were inspired and informed by her personal experience of loss. She's also a Reiki practitioner and facilitator of yoga therapy groups for grief support and self-empowerment. And it has been such an honor of mine to work closely with Wendy over the last several weeks to get ready for this course. I'll be the host and course manager for this. And she is truly a gift. And any of you that join us for this course will be greatly supported by her wisdom and her experience. So please join me in welcoming Wendy. Hi, Wendy. It's so nice to have you here.
Hi, Anne. Hi, everyone. It is an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So I'd love to have you open with a short practice just to bring us all into coherence today.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. I invite you wherever you are right now to just take a moment and to either sit in a chair, or if it's available on the ground, on a cushion or blanket, or any place that allows you to feel grounded. And we'll just take a few moments to ground in and to center. So once you are seated, you can close your eyes or soften your gaze. And if you're in a chair, I invite you to feel the soles of your feet on the earth, to feel your sitting bones sink down to the chair. If you're on the ground, you can feel your sits bones sink down into the earth, or maybe there's a pillow or a blanket beneath you. And to just take a few moments to begin to connect in with your breath and to bring your attention inside. And as you do, just observing the way that your breath is moving in your body. Noticing the inner experience of your breath as it comes in and as it moves back out again. And allowing just these next few rounds of breath to help you bring your awareness in towards the center of your being and down towards the earth. Using your breath as a gentle touchstone, as a way to come inside and to connect. It's a way to feel yourself centered here on the earth. And with these next few rounds of breath, we'll just go through a very gentle and brief check-in of all the different parts of ourselves. So begin by just observing the physical sensations in your body. So just notice, what is your experience? What is the physical experience inside of your body as it is right now? So knowing that there's no right or wrong way to feel, and there's nothing that you have to do with this information except notice it. Just a gentle noticing of the inner landscape of your body. Allowing every part of your body to be touched by your awareness. And again, there's nothing to do with this except notice. And then with your next few breaths, we'll just gently shift our awareness, just doing a brief check-in on what's happening emotionally right now. And you'll see as we check in with these different aspects of ourselves, it's just a way to just kind of orient to where we are here and now. To bring our awareness into the present. So just simply noticing, what are you feeling here and now in this moment? And if there are a lot of different emotions happening, I invite you to notice what's most prominent and just to simply give that feeling your attention, to maybe even lean in a little closer towards it and just allowing it to be felt. Just another few breaths. And then as you're ready, we'll shift again, this time checking in with your mental body, noticing your thoughts, and allowing yourself to be a witness for your thoughts, just observing each thought as it arises, and then noticing it and then letting it be. Just a few moments here to just observe the inner workings of your mind. Noticing if there's any one thought that is requiring more attention. And noticing if you even drift away. And if you do, just come back with your breath. This is the way we just come back home. And then with your next few breaths now, shift one more time, checking in with your spiritual body. This is that part of your being that truly is your essence, place you can connect in with your higher self. And I invite you just to see what this part of your being feels like this morning, especially with so much going on in our world right now. We get to come within through meditation and feel into our own higher self, feeling into the place that we hold our resiliency and our wisdom, just kind of checking in with yourself through this lens. And then when you're ready, I invite you to bring your awareness back to your whole body, your whole self. Just feeling yourself as a whole being. Wherever you are in your day, just letting this be a moment to sync up with yourself and to allow an intention, maybe it's a prayer or a wish, to just come from your heart. And then we'll take a deep breath into that, a falling out breath, as I call it. Deep breath in through your nose. Then exhale, release that intention with a sigh. Letting it go. And then as you feel ready, you can open your eyes and come back. Maybe a little more present for your day. And thank you all so much for joining me in this gentle check-in.
Thank you so much for that, Wendy. So we'll spend the rest of our time together exploring your questions for Wendy as we prepare for her upcoming video course, Transform Loss into Life Reimagined, which begins on Thursday, September 3rd at 10 a.m. Pacific. Please visit our website, somaticmovementforloss.com. You'll learn all about the course and you'll find a link to register there as well. So let's get started with questions. First of all, I want to thank all of you for sending in so many wonderful questions through our webcast before. I'll be happy to read them out if you'd like. And for those of you who are joining us live, just type your question into the chat and I'll read it out for you. So we're going to start with a question that was sent in through our webcast. So Samuel is asking, what is somatic movement? And others have asked, why is this so important to your process?
Thank you. Well, I could speak to this both personally as well as from more of a professional perspective. So somatic movement, the way that I experience it or explain it, as simply put, is coming into our bodies and moving in a way that helps us connect in with more of the felt sense of what we're feeling, more of our inner experience. So our movement becomes a vehicle to express and to actually connect in and to feel the sensations in our bodies, our thoughts, our feelings, our whole being perspective. And the reason this is so relevant to grief work is that our bodies store so much of what we go through. So anything, whether it's actually resolved or unresolved, grief, trauma, undigested experience gets held in the cells of our bodies. So sometimes, when we're grieving and we're trying to make sense of something, we're trying to work out all these big feelings, we can get almost, at least for myself, almost to a stopping point where we can only think it out so far, where our brains can only work it out so far. And it's often not till we drop into our bodies, into the cells of our bodies, where the memories are being held, where those feelings of loss, where maybe even the event is still living inside of us, that we have to actually go there as a way to kind of work out those feelings, as a way to kind of bring them up to the surface so that they can be felt by us, so they can be acknowledged, and then through that, so they can be released. So we're not always carrying kind of the burden of our grief or our losses. Rather, it can be an opportunity for a deep self-inquiry that actually takes us deeper into our bodies and closer in towards ourselves. So this somatic piece is a really powerful way to not just move through our grief, but to also really get to know ourselves better through the process. And one last thing I'll say actually with that. So when I think about kind of somatic movement, I just want to name that in the course, we'll be exploring this both in movement, actually moving our bodies, but we'll also be exploring this in meditation by learning how to go in and to feel where we are holding our grief in our bodies.
Thanks so much, Wendy. Does someone have to be experienced in yoga to take this class? I see there's 30-minute yoga, one person asks, and I took a yoga class a long time ago and it didn't go well, she says.
You absolutely do not have to have any experience. I will walk you through it every step of the way. The yoga in this course is really about having it be that vehicle to connect us in more of their inner experience. So the movements are simple and gentle, and I will offer lots of modifications to support you wherever you are in your practice. The intention and the invitation is to use these different shapes that we create with our bodies to go inside and to feel, and also to kind of open up spaces so there can be an experience of release. So I will talk you through it every bit of the way, and it really is accessible for anybody, no matter what your situation.
Just to complete some questions around the yoga and movement portion, Wendy, Robin says, how do you encourage movement when there is resistance in the body?
Well, I want to say that you're not alone by feeling resistance in your body. I think most of us go through that at some point. I certainly have for myself. When there's resistance, the best way we can meet that is with love. So we get to acknowledge and to feel the resistance, and that is often what opens the door for something to shift. When we actually resist the resistance, right, then it can actually create more of that feeling of kind of shut down or kind of disconnecting us from the feelings. When we can actually lean in and feel the resistance itself, that's often what will create the shift. I think the hardest part sometimes is just showing up. So arriving on your mat with a willingness to feel even the resistance is the most direct pathway I know for that to shift.
Thank you, Wendy. Ellen shares that her husband died very, very recently, and that her grief seems to be coming in what she calls short bursts, where she's living her life, doing some yoga, qigong meditation. The tears come, Then she feels gratitude for her life together with him and her life now. And she's also tapping into her trainings in Buddhism and Stoicism, which have taught her acceptance of death.
Mm.
She asks, am I just spiritual bypassing grief by just experiencing such short bursts of it and then going on to gratitude as usual?
Mm. Wow, what a profound question. I just want to first acknowledge the awareness that's there to even consider, is this spiritual bypass, or what's happening. So I want to just first really honor your experience and this question. And I think that I think one of the keys is not to judge whatever our experience is, right? So I think spiritual bypass, this way that we can kind of transcend up to another realm and actually touch the light, is not a bad thing, and is pretty, I don't want to say common, but it's really normal, especially after a recent loss. It's one of our coping strategies, right? It's one of the ways that we actually move through the pain. Some of us get numb and don't feel anything at all, right? Some of us go up and try and touch the light as a way to keep our inner flame lit, as a way to cope and to survive a very dark time. I'll share personally, I did that for myself. I did the spiritual bypass thing in the beginning because that is part of how I survived, right? I needed to have hope. I needed to know that I was going to be okay. I needed to find meaning in something so difficult. And I wanted to feel close to my son. So I just want to say that if that's your experience, there's nothing here to judge. I think the important piece is that you're aware that this is a part of how you're coping right now. And there may be a time that you feel you have to kind of pull yourself back in and to kind of feel it on a more earthly, maybe embodied level. This course really kind of honors all of that. So there's one of the guiding principles actually is that there's no judgment with whatever your way of moving through it is. It's your way. The course not only gives space for that, and honors that, but also offers tools to kind of help bring you back into your body. So as you're kind of having those bursts of joy or gratitude, and kind of remembrance of your time with your beloved, it would also offer you a space to go in and to feel the pain of missing him, and other aspects of grief that may be more in your body than in your physical body, I should say, than in your spiritual body. So it gives you a way to kind of connect all the pieces. But I think the takeaway is just to not judge whatever it is that you're needed right now. And there's many ways we move through grief.
All right, this is from Sonia. I am a new widow. I'm concerned about opening and feeling too much. Is there such a thing as opening too much? Will I cry and feel raw? How do I heal from this kind of work? I've been told by energy workers that I need to protect myself, and I'm not sure how to protect myself.
Again, such another beautiful, tender question. And I again want to acknowledge the awareness of just kind of knowing yourself, and even kind of the wondering of, is this too much? Can I handle this? And how do we protect ourselves as we stay open? And I think that's really at the center of the question that I'm hearing is the pain can be so overwhelming that we instinctively want to put up armor and shut down to protect ourselves. And that is normal. And that is wise in some ways, and especially when it's new. And there is a way to kind of work with ourselves where we can practice moments of staying open and feeling and touching those feelings in little doses so that we can handle it without having to be cut off, without having to close off our heart. And I want to just invite you to really listen to yourself, when you're working with your grief, if you choose to do the course or in other arenas, because there is a bit of protection, often that's needed when we're in these early phases of our loss. And we can do that while keeping our heart open. So some of it may be really creating intentional spaces where you can go in and feel a little bit at a time. I actually offer a practice as a part of this course that kind of offers a daily way to go in and to touch those feelings without getting completely swallowed up by them. So it's a very short practice, allows you to go in and to feel, to work with opening your heart to feeling that, and then to have a way to kind of pull yourself back in so that you feel safe to exist in the world. So I think there's a little bit of just moderation around staying open, being willing to feel it and to maybe even talk about it. And then also honoring kind of the quiet spaces that are often needed in between to just be with yourself.
So we've had some questions, Wendy, about the sharing. I saw there is a part of the course dedicated to sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that required? What if I don't feel comfortable sharing in the group?
Such a great question. It is absolutely not required. And I just want to speak to like what the intention of the sharing is about. Part of it is actually having a space to use your voice, to share your experience and to be witnessed by others who are also grieving in your authentic experience. What this can do for us is offer kind of a reflection of ourselves, to see ourselves, to know ourselves better. And I would say there's just as much value in the listening, in the witnessing others. This is really how we feel supported, to know that we're not alone, to know that we are actually existing in community where other people are also grieving. And when we hear other people's experiences, it can validate so much of what we're feeling. We can feel more connection to others through that shared experience. And we can also learn something, maybe a perspective that we hadn't considered that someone else would share. What this allows is for us to really create a learning community. So it is not required to share. There may be many of you who really just want to be in this collective space and want to just listen, and that's okay. There's no pressure, and you don't have to know even right now. It can be a moment-to-moment experience of if you feel the call to have your voice be heard. And if not, this is equally as valuable.
So we are here with Wendy Stern, learning about her course, Transform Loss into Life Reimagined, which begins on Thursday, September the 3rd. Please log on to somaticmovementforloss.com for all the details and to register. So this is a follow-up to the last question. Will everyone have a chance to share during the sharing portion of class?
That's another good question. The truth is, I don't know the answer to that 100%. We will certainly be kind of taking turns and making sure that as many people as want to share are able to share. I anticipate most people having an opportunity to share in this course. And I believe that anyone who really wants to will have that opportunity. But it will also depend on how many of us there are in the group together.
Okay. Let's see. Here's one from Fred. So many people are in grief now and have known losses during the COVID crisis. We feel their pain, but some of us entered this time already in grief. I lost both of my parents in recent years and have also experienced other kinds of loss and change. Do you have advice about the collective versus personal experiences of grief and loss?
I think this question speaks to what a lot of us may be going through. And what I know about this collective experience of loss that we're in right now is that our individual experiences of loss tend to be heightened. So when we go through a loss of any kind, but especially as it's being magnified by this collective right now, that it often brings up anything that was already there right into our face. It brings it a little closer. So our individual experiences of loss can, they may be not just more prominent, but they may feel just more exaggerated by what everything else that's going on around us. I also think that a collective grief process really mirrors an individual process in some ways. And there's some really profound parallels to this experience of the pandemic and what it is to go through an individual loss. But what I want to kind of offer for that is just a real gentleness and invitation to tend to the personal. Sometimes in this collective, we kind of feel like we have to do something or be something. And when we're going through individual losses that are really calling our attention, I invite you to listen to that and to offer kind of more of that inward lens to be able to support yourself to feel that and to know that the collective energy can support that. Yeah.
Here's a question from Rhonda. I'm going through divorce after 22 years, and at the same time, the death of my beloved father. I feel so numb. I'm not going through grief for my father normally. Is this normal?
Can you repeat the first part again? Just want to make sure I hear the whole question.
Of course, I'm going through divorce
Mhm.
after a marriage of 22 years, and at the same time, the death of my beloved father.
Mm.
Feels numb and is wondering, feeling like she's not grieving her father, quote unquote, normally. And is this common and normal for people to feel numb?
Oh, absolutely. It's common and normal. And when we're going through multiple losses at a time, kind of a compounded feeling of grief, the numbness is often our bodies just shut down, right? It's when it becomes more than we can handle, there can be kind of that numbing feeling, that is actually there as a defense mechanism to protect us from the extreme emotion or from the pain of our grief. So yes, it is absolutely normal to be feeling um, maybe more or less or different than you would expect as you're going through different kinds of losses at the same time. Yeah.
So this person shares, I'm really interested in your course, but I'm concerned about being in a group of people all sharing about their grief. It's
Mhm.
such a weight to hold my own grief, and I'm worried that listening to others share will add to that weight and sadness and basically immerse me in more sadness.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I just want to say that is something that I think a lot of folks are concerned about when coming into kind of a collective experience of grief. And what I want to say about that is um, part of this practice is hearing other people's stories and kind of connecting heart to heart. But there's a very strong kind of empowerment component to this work. This isn't just about talking about and feeling our grief. It's also about kind of accessing our resiliency and being empowered to learn and to grow through that process. So even though some of the sharing may kind of pull you in, everything about the practice is designed, especially the yoga at the end, which allows us to kind of move through the emotions and to release, is all intended to leave you at the end of the course not having a grief hangover, as I call it, right? That feeling you can have of almost feeling worse rather than better when you've just kind of been in a group where you're talking about grief. There are other aspects of this course, the movement, the journaling, the time with yourself, where you will be kind of empowered to not just feel your grief, but to feel whatever it is that's beneath it, that's growing up inside of you. The other thing I'll mention is there is kind of training in the first few modules of the course where we'll talk about holding energetic boundaries. We'll talk about not taking on each other's pain and to learn how to kind of hold space for each other, to work with these practices of kind of deep listening without absorbing, without having to take it on or trying to fix it for each other. So we'll be kind of supporting this from a few different kind of angles throughout the course. Yeah.
Wendy Ginger says, is it possible to delay the grieving process for years? I feel like I've never grieved my dad who passed away 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. I think that we all deal with things as they happen the best that we can. And there are times in life where we go through a significant loss or any kind of loss. And we either don't have space in our life to really go in to deal with the emotions. Maybe we don't know how to. And so it can get stored somewhere inside of our bodies. Those feelings can get held. And then often there's an event in our life that either opens that up, right? Something as big as this pandemic or something more personal, or there's just readiness. all of a sudden we're at a place in our life where we have the capacity to handle all those feelings that got tucked away. So if that is your story, this is a really powerful way to kind of unearth some of those old feelings and to deal with it now. And please know you're not alone in that. So many of us store things, and we also work things out a little bit at a time. So it may be that you did grieve to a point, but that there was more work to do and that now you're ready.
We're getting this question, would this program be valuable for someone just losing their job after 15 years of service?
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. I think that one of the things in our culture is the way that we can kind of define grief and create a hierarchy of, oh, well, this is loss, or this is not loss, or this is grief, or this is not. We very often just associate it with losing a person, but losing a job, losing a relationship, losing even the loss of some of your lifestyle or freedoms of being out in the world, all of this is grief. Losing a job is a huge change that we go through and can have a very real impact on our lives. And I've been through it personally. My family's been through it personally. And I know that those feelings that came up for me during that were just as real as the experience of losing my son and losing other important people in my life. So I really, I love that you can acknowledge that as a loss, and that is the first step. And this course is here for you.
Great. So we have a couple of questions from Facebook about um, what you'll speak about related to how people are doing now. And I think it's related to purpose, how grief alters us, and we explore who we are now. And Renee is also sharing that she lost her brother at a young age and deals with feelings of why him and not me. He has children, she doesn't. So she's sitting with that question of what is my purpose here? Why did I survive? And so can you speak a little bit to how you'll be addressing people's purpose and why they're here still to do work?
I'm really touched by this question because it parallels so much of my own journey. So I'm going to answer this one, I think, a little bit more from a personal perspective. I'll start by saying I lost my older sister when I was young. And I think my whole life I've sat with the question, why me, not her? Why am I here when she's not? And what does that mean? And what do I do with that, right? And I think in my early years, I even felt it as a bit of a responsibility of like, wow, I have to be enough to make up for that. And then when I lost my son about 10 years ago, that happened again for me. That kind of reemerged as like, what is the meaning in all of this? And I think it's really normal when we're going through a loss, when we lose someone we love, to seek meaning out of the experience as a way to not just make sense of it, but for me, it was to like make something okay out of something that was not okay, right? To give it purpose. And I know personally how much our experience of loss can really open the door for our own self-exploration. And this is, I think, what leads so many of us to this kind of pursuit of purpose, of not just the like, why am I here? Why, and when, some beloved is not, but it's like, well, what am I meant to do here? What are my gifts? Who am I as a soul? And what is my path, which is often defined not in spite of our losses, but very often because of. So even just the question of like, how does this guide me to my purpose is a really, I think, powerful perspective and way to begin to explore grief. And there's kind of a dual process that we will go through in this course of touching the feelings, of just being very real and present with the emotions, with the grief itself, and also simultaneously using our own emotional experience, using our bodies even as a way to go even deeper and to actually get to know who we are. So through kind of the opening of our hearts that happen with loss, there's an opportunity to go in and to unearth either old experiences or just to get to know the deeper aspects of who we are. And as we get to know ourselves and as we kind of work with our relationship with ourselves and really practice self-love, as we learn to not judge our experience and not judge ourselves, there is a huge opportunity for more authenticity. And through that self-exploration and discovery, as we really get to know ourselves as a being, that is what very naturally and authentically guides us along our path in terms of purpose. So there is a huge relationship between grief work and finding purpose. And this is so much of the intention actually around this course, is not to just have a place to talk about it and to grieve with others, but to allow it to open us to know ourselves better, to love ourselves more, and to really become more of who we are through the process. We'll work in the course around the evolution of our identity through loss, the ways that we change, the ways that we even grieve old parts of ourselves that are no longer as true for us, and that how our grief can open us to actually evolving into more of who we are. And that's not somebody else. It's just really becoming more of who we are. So this question is just so on point with really, I think, some of the value that this course can offer. I can't hear.
I find this question really interesting, Wendy. This is from Shar. I think my capacity to take in healing and transformation is limited by my grief. I take courses and trainings to work through trauma and grief, but it's like I can't seem to take it in anymore. How would your course help me in a way that perhaps I haven't experienced in the past?
I think that's a really beautiful question. This course is really very much about experiencing yourself. It's not clinical in its expression. So, and I want to just kind of name and acknowledge kind of the brain fog that we can go through during a loss. It can be really hard to even know which end is up and which end is down. We may find ourselves forgetting things, not remembering names of things, like information doesn't always penetrate. So the question makes a lot of sense that, you know, in your seeking to kind of work through your loss, there's kind of a reaching out for information, for tools, of course, for support to help you deal with it. And in this course, I just want to kind of assure you that there's nothing you have to remember, if that makes sense. There's nothing you have to even like do. This is very much a learning how to be. So the guidance will just be supporting you to just feel where you are, to feel yourself. And if there are moments where you're like, nothing's happening, I can't feel anything at all, that's okay. Observing the lack of sensation is a part of the process, or the lack of feeling, or if your thoughts are kind of cloudy. All of this is a way to actually just be able to track what it is you're actually feeling and to be supported to just be with that without having to do anything with it. And I think that that's the biggest point here, is that there's nothing you have to remember or do. It's really a space to be held, to truly be held and supported in being wherever you are, and to know that that's okay. And I also just want to say again, these feelings you're having are so normal.
Claudia asks, how do you get over the fear that something else tragic will happen?
Well, I know that fear. I think for most of us, it can go two ways, right? One is the fear of like, this thing happened and we can be terrified to like leave our house, to live our lives, you know, because we can have the sense, right, that if something else happened like this, I wouldn't be able to handle it, right? So there can be, I think, fear of living. The other way that some of us go, and I'll say I had a moment of this after my son died. My husband and I traveled to Bali, Indonesia, and Thailand. We decided just a few weeks after my son passed away. And I remember on the day of my son's funeral, actually, that this thing had happened. We were completely in shock and completely numbed out. But there was this feeling of like, well, the worst thing has happened, so there's nothing left to be afraid of. So some folks might even experience like a freedom of like, well, the bottom's dropped out. Here we are. I might as well fly because there's nothing else to be afraid of. So I just want to name that we can kind of go in two different directions. But the fear of losing someone else or something else again, I just want to hold that with tenderness and say that's so normal. And the best way I know to handle kind of those fears and that feeling of kind of like that closing in or that kind of compression or collapse that we may get inside when we're afraid is to move in towards the feeling and to feel the collapse, to feel the fear itself. And the more that we give our emotions, fear or otherwise, our attention, our acknowledgement, and on a very somatic level, willingness to actually feel it in our bodies, it then allows it to relax. It allows it to shift and to kind of release some of the clenching or holding so that we can breathe and so that we can actually live our lives. And this may be a process you keep touching back in with again and again. But that is the best way I know how to deal with those fears. Again, they're so normal.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have time for more questions. And again, I want to thank people for posting such deep and powerful questions and being so authentic with your questions today. But before we take those, I want to take a few moments just to share the details about Transform Loss into Life Reimagined. So as you can tell from hearing Wendy speak, this is going to be a very healing and transformative 7 weeks with Wendy. You'll experience healing and open to new possibilities through her guidance. The 7-week course takes place on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, and that starts September the 3rd. You'll receive audio and video replays, transcripts, and any other materials through our course homepage. It's like a virtual classroom. Also, I'd like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, making sure that you absolutely love it. You have until September 17th in this case. And as an added option, all of you are encouraged to join us on the private Facebook community group, just for those who register and purchase this course. And this is a great chance to connect with one another outside the classroom. And also Wendy will be present and some of her teaching assistants as well. And everyone who registers for this course will receive the Transform Loss into Life Reimagined bonus collection. This includes a few bonuses. The first one is create a container for your grief. This is a daily practice for tending your grief and letting go. This is created by Wendy and really experienced by her. She created a video and a PDF just for this course. We also have 3 guided audio meditations, practices to support healing from grief from Wendy. And the Fearless Path of Mindful Grieving. These are 4 tenets to support you through your journey of grief and transformation. That's a PDF from Wendy as well. Also, this wonderful dialogue called Broken Open. This is an audio dialogue between Mirabai Starr and Elizabeth Lesser. And when you register by midnight Pacific, Thursday, August the 27th, you'll receive this special bonus called The Tunnel of Terror. This is a metaphor for how to better understand the evolution of your identity through loss. This is a video from Wendy. Gain hope and a framework to find your way through the darkness and into the light of your own awakening. All right, we're going over to this question that Crystal sent in, Wendy. I am a Black woman. I really love what Wendy is saying, and I want to be sure that I will feel safe in processing my grief in this course. Wendy, how do you hold and navigate cultural competency in your course, in your community?
What an amazing question and so important. Well, the founding principle of this course is creating safety. It is the most important thing. And we set it up from like the first minute that everyone has an equal part here, that everyone's grief is valid, that everyone, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, that everyone has a place here and that is all held equal. I will be offering some sharing guidelines, and we'll be actually creating a contract together in our first class that will really lay out the different ways that we hold it safe, the way that we listen to each other, the way that we hold the container together so that no matter what you feel, no matter who you are, that you are equally held. And I think in terms of just different cultural backgrounds, no matter where you are in the world, we talk about grief in such a universal way that it really is about whatever it is you are experiencing. So I'll be offering kind of different themes and jumping off points for your own self-inquiry, but every bit of this will lead you back to yourself to get to kind of experience it and interpret it in the ways that make sense. So in terms of feeling safe in the group, this is laid out from day one, and there's really no room. And I want to just say this for those of you who might be afraid of kind of the safety or sharing piece. It's held in a way where there's really no room for other people's projections. This is why it's not just a group conversation. It's held in a way where anyone who wants to speak can share, and that as a facilitator, I'll be offering a reflection to support you to see and know yourself better and to validate what you feel. There's not really room for other people to aim to fix it or to have a different experience. They can have that within, of course, but not out loud in the group container. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Crystal, for that question, and Wendy for your beautiful answer. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anne Delane says, sometimes I feel ambushed by grief, most intensely when I am feeling peaceful in myself and the world's pain intrudes. It feels like a punch in the gut and the tears come simultaneously. Is there a way to transform this?
I know that feeling. I'll say that too. Grief very often comes in waves, and I get that feeling that it's like a punch in the gut. It can come in waves where we may be feeling wonderful and having a beautiful day, and there's something. Sometimes for me, it was a beautiful sunset that would remind me, or I would feel my loved one, and that can kind of bring us right back into the throes of it, into the depths of the pain of the grief itself. And so in terms of how do we transcend that, it's kind of the same practice that we've been talking about. We feel it. The only way to kind of release that like gut-wrenching pain is to actually allow it to be felt in the moment that it arises. And then through that, it will begin to shift. And I just want to name that this takes time. So I've found that over time, as I keep working with feeling the feelings and letting them be, feeling the feelings again and letting them be, over time that happens a little quicker. But in the beginning, sometimes the feelings of pain would stay for a while. And it's such human instinct to like retract or to move away from something that's uncomfortable. So we almost have to train ourselves to do the opposite of what that instinct may be, to actually lean in towards the feeling. When you get that punch in the gut, when you get that feeling and it hurts, to be able to take a breath there, to be able to really gently go in and to feel it, and then to allow it to shift, allow it to change. Yeah, and that it doesn't have to keep you from living those beautiful moments. Sometimes there can be a fear of like relaxing and letting your guard down, right? Because you don't want to get sucker punched. Grief has its way with us until it's done. And the more that we can just feel it in the moment it arises and acknowledge itself, that it begins to shift and to move and to lessen its intensity, to lessen its grip. Mm-hmm.
Wendy, this person is sharing that she likely or he can likely not attend the live sessions. Mm-hmm. So how will listening and participating with the replays and watching and listening to the sharing circles, but not being able to share live, how will that benefit this person?
Yeah. Well, the course was really designed for those who are able to log on in person and those who are going to do the recording as you're suggesting. Every bit of this practice is really guided. So whether you're watching it live or listening to it, you're going to be taken through the same process. The same teachings will be offered. It'll just be me, like I'm sitting here now, kind of sharing kind of what we're diving into today on that given day. I'll be guiding you through the meditations just like this, as if you were sitting right here with me live or not. The sharing circle, you will have the benefit of really hearing other people's experiences. And if there's something that you're compelled to share, and can't do so in the live class, this is a great place for our Facebook group, or for you to kind of speak what you're feeling, or if there's questions, to ask them in other ways. You will still be equally as connected. And then the journaling and the yoga, it's all right here. So when you take yourself through the practice, through the yoga, through the video, there's still that energy of the collective. So even though you may not be seeing everybody else, which is like so complicated anyway in our Zoom world with little boxes on the screens, right? There's still an energetic feeling to knowing that other people are a part of this. And the yoga practice is intended to offer both that individual container for you, which is really sweet, and I think so beautifully done at home in our own sacred spaces. And you'll feel the community around you because it's built in with the language I'll use and the invitation to be a part of it. So I want to encourage you to join if you can't, even if you can't be here live, and there won't be anything lost. You'll still be able to participate and to be fully connected.
Thanks, Wendy. So Meg is sharing, I am scared to have an agenda on grief and expectations I may or may not be able to achieve in regards to the transformative goal aspects of this course.
Mm-hmm. Let me help with that. There's no goal here except to show up. So the expectation, and I just want to say this clearly, is not that you're going to have some huge transformational experience, right? That's not exactly the goal. The goal is that you'll have a space to feel yourself, to know yourself, to love yourself, and to be able to kind of move through the feelings. Transformation happens over time. Transformation, in my experience, is like the result, or like what happens by going through the process, right? By learning how to lean in towards ourselves and feel our feelings, and to actually be with the feelings of our losses. So in the course itself, I will say there is no agenda here. The agenda is not to be healed or to be transformed. The agenda is only to show up and to be willing and to be curious, to be willing to be vulnerable with yourself first and foremost, and potentially vulnerable with others if that feels right to you. But we really, really take the agenda out of grieving, because there is no right or wrong way. This is so incredibly personal to each person and their own journey. So please know that you will be supported and honored for exactly where you are. And the only expectation is to show up.
Nadia shares, I am considering taking your class, and I'm interested in hearing any thoughts from you as to whether you think that it would be, quote unquote, a good fit for me. While I have never had to bear the loss of a beloved child or a partner, the loss and the unfinished mourning that I want to take on is that of childhood trauma, and more specifically, psychological abuse and emotional neglect. I have worked on these issues for years, but I feel the call to address them on the physical level. I know I have a lot more work to do in the process to let go of, but am unsure as to whether I would be in a different place than most people in this class who might be experiencing more recent grief or griefs of different kind.
It's a beautiful question, and I'm really happy that you asked it. Thank you. This course is very intentionally designed to support people through all different kinds of losses. And it was done intentionally. We actually learned so much from each other. We have a richer learning community when we have different kinds of losses, when we can learn how to kind of let go of our hierarchy around grief. And by hierarchy, I mean like, oh, this grief is greater than this grief, which is greater than this grief, right? The way that we can kind of disqualify our own experience or our own feelings as less than or different than. And what I found is that when we come into the collective with different kinds of losses, we learn to see each other human heart to human heart. Then we are just human beings going through loss, where the story can fall away. The hierarchy of whose is greater can fall away. And I just want to say that childhood trauma is something that is so worthy of this grief process. With childhood trauma, it lives so deep in our bodies, and it can so often shape so much of who we are. I think most of us have some aspect of that, and for some who've been through like childhood trauma, they've been working on the wisdom to deal with it somatically is wise. That especially when things happen early in our lives, that we hold them in our bodies in a way that we can't always have access to in our mind alone. That it often takes us to actually go in physically, somatically, and to get to know and to feel where those early experiences of trauma are being held, so that we can bring them into the light and to be recognized and dealt with. So I just want to assure you, number one, that this is so, so valid, and that this course will support you in your work to go in so courageously and to deal with those old feelings. And that on a physical level, it's often the key to access where it's held in our bodies as a way to move through very early experiences of trauma or loss. So you will be held, and you will find that we have such a huge range of people in terms of losses in this course, that you won't be alone in that.
So, Wendy, I know you've been teaching this process and that you created many, many times. What are you most looking forward to sharing in this format this time around with your students that join you on this course?
I think that some of it is the timing, on a personal level, these last many months since the pandemic started, it's just been a time of such soul searching, and it's opened me to so much of my own past experiences and belief systems. And it's kind of maybe reactivated my own fire of not just resiliency, but desire to support people to really get through these dark nights of the soul that so many of us are going through. And so this time round, I am so honored and excited to be a part of the collective, to literally be in the circle with you as we're going through this, but to share some of these tools that I've learned that have helped my grief, to be able to bring that kind of to a larger community outside of my hometown of Boulder, and to be able to bring us together at a time where we need connection and community more than ever before. There is so much divisiveness in our country, in our world. And so this feels like an opportunity to really feel connected and unified in just this common way of seeing each other, loving each other as we are, taking away any of the judgments, and getting to really connect human heart to human heart through our pain and also through our love. The darkness can open us to such immense light and gratitude and love. So to be in this kind of collective sea of love with you all, it feels like the most potent time we could possibly be doing this very deep kind of soul oriented work.
Thanks so much, Wendy. I want to take a moment to thank everyone for submitting so many wonderful questions. We know we cannot always get to all the questions in this Q&A, but we hope you found something here today in listening to Wendy speak about her course. I want to thank you for being with us. Transform Loss into Life Reimagined begins on Thursday, September the 3rd. Again, please visit somaticmovementforloss.com. You'll learn all about the course, check out all the modules, and find a link to register there as well. And for those of you that know you want to join us, and if you register by midnight Pacific, Thursday, August the 27th, you'll receive a special bonus. That's Wendy's video teaching called Tunnel of Terror. This is a metaphor for how better to understand the evolution of your identity through loss. Wendy, I'm going to pass it over to you for any final words, anything that's on your heart that you'd like to share with our listeners before we close today.
Well, just want to say that I'm really honored to be offering this course, and I'm really excited to just kind of step in and to create this learning community with you all, and to like I said before, to really be in the circle with you, to be a part of it. I learn and grow from each one of you. Every time I show up and teach, I receive something. I receive more learning and understanding about myself and my own loss. So I really just welcome you and invite you to step in. I know it takes courage. I know that is not an easy thing to create an intentional space where you're like dropping in with your grief each week. But it has changed my life to do so. It has allowed me to move from the darkest spaces of my life into a space of such love and gratitude. And no matter where you are in your grief journey, and no matter what kind of loss you've been through, my arms are open wide. My heart is open, and I welcome you to come in and to be a part of it. I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It was wonderful having you here today. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Anne.
Sure. So thank you everyone for joining us on behalf of all of us here at the Shift Network. I wish you well, and I look forward to having you on this course or on one in the future. Be well.